Hello and welcome to another episode of Cooking with Cleavage. I decided to make coq au vin for y'all. It's a French dish that I first had in New York in the 90s in some French cafes, and I've just figured, I looked at different recipes and figured what I liked about it and made up my own. So this is coq au vin. The legend goes that Julius Caesar, when he was fighting with the Gauls, the symbol of the Gauls was the rooster. So one legend I read said that the Gauls sent a rooster to Julius Caesar as kind of like a, you know, we're gonna win this war. We're sending you a rooster. And Caesar turned around and told his cook, hey, figure out how to cook this rooster. So, you know, the best way. And after he won the war, he served the rooster to the Gauls as kind of like a dark humor thing. But in any case, no matter how this dish got started, it's definitely more of a country French dish. You get it in the countryside in France. And they'll usually use a lighter wine like Pinot Noir, which is the main grape that is grown in the Burgundy region of France. A lot of people say Burgundy. It's not Burgundy. It's Bourgogne. So it's Burgundy. Anyway, you marinate the chicken. I'm using bone-in, skin-on chicken thighs, and I marinated these overnight. And then what I did is I took them out and I dried them off. And then I put them in a bag and I coated them with flour. So that's what these chicken thighs are here. Oh, I thought I had 4 left, but it looks like there are 5 of them. So they're really nice and coated. But what you first want to do is take bacon. You want to use thick bacon for this. In France, when I lived there, they call it lardon, and it actually looks like this when you buy it. It's really thick bacon, and they cut it up, and that's what they use to cook. So as you can tell, this is my new kitchen, my new appliances, that I won't have to ever have a bad Thanksgiving meal because of it, because the casserole, I'll have to make that again for y'all because it really was a disaster. So I'm going to turn this on, you know, like a medium high, and get this bacon all fried up. My sister always tells me you're supposed to put bacon in a cold pan and cook it on low. I'm not going to cook these on low because I actually want them to crisp up, but you want the fat to come out of them. So we're going to get that cooked up.
3.
Okay, so you see how these are getting really nice and crispy? Okay, so I didn't really talk about the marinating too much, but what I want to say about the marinating is that traditionally with this dish, it was made with a cock, a rooster, which is not as tender as a hen, right? So back then they just need, you know, when you do it with a rooster, you need to actually marinate it for a few days so that it makes it more tender. Now you can find a lot of recipes. When I was researching recipes for coq au vin, a lot of the recipes didn't even marinate the chicken in red wine overnight, much less for a few hours, and they went straight to this part. Because the hen, really, a regular chicken that you get in the store, is tender enough where you don't need to do that. But I'm a traditionalist for the most part. I mean, I like tradition, so I like to at least do it as much traditionally as possible. I know a true traditional would be cooking a cock instead of a hen, but I don't have one of those fresh to grab onto. So anyway, so this is the chicken, like I said. So we're just gonna put the chicken straight into the bacon grease. So you see it's really nice. It's really hot, right? So if you can tell which one is the top of it, you know, that looks like it's the top to me. Put that down first. That might be the top. It doesn't matter because you're going to turn them. You just want to get it nice and browned on both sides. I read recipes that they only brown it on the top and they don't turn it over, but I don't know. I like to do it this way. Okay, so I turned them once. I cooked each side about 3 minutes, I'd say. Well, let's see how the other side looks. Yeah, see how it's got a nice brown? So I'm just gonna put it to set it aside. See how each side looks really good? I'm gonna set it aside on these paper towels and let it kind of wait for the rest of this meal. Because it's a whole bunch of stuff. Oh my God, it's so exciting. Okay, so in this, you wanna cook the vegetables. Seasoning vegetables. So here are your seasoning vegetables. I have parsley, carrots, celery, and onions. Okay, so let me talk to you about a French mirepoix. A French mirepoix is onions, carrots, and celery. A lot of people get confused because in Louisiana, we do a mirepoix. We call it the Holy Trinity. And instead of carrots, we use green bell pepper. Because when Louisiana, native to Louisiana, indigenous to Louisiana are green bell peppers. So we use that in our cooking here instead of carrots. But in traditional French dishes like coq au vin, they're very delicate, right? So they need something that's delicate. So you see the vegetables, the vegetable will get all that up from the pan because vegetables have water in them. And I'm going to tell you a little secret that I learned from Frank Brightson. Frank, don't shoot me or anything, but he taught me when he was when I did a cooking show, a cooking class with him once. He told me, or told the class, that he likes to put his vegetables in a little bit at a time so that there's complexity in the texture of some of it's going to be a little bit more cooked, some of it's going to be a little less cooked, and it gives more complexity to your dish. But I was also told to also season as I go. So season at each layer. This is oregano. When you use dried herbs, you want to rub it in your finger. I've heard people rub it in their hands like that. I was always taught just to, I'm going to put a couple of bay leaves in here, maybe 2 or 3 small ones, and then a little bit of thyme. The secret with thyme is not to use too much, because thyme, you can overpower something with thyme, but you always want to kind of rub the dried herb to bring it back to life. Little bit of salt, because I already put salt in the flour. And then I'm going to put a little bit of cayenne because I like it, but I'm sure they don't use cayenne in traditional French cooking. But this is white pepper. I prefer it to black pepper. So I'm going to put a little bit of that in there. Might have put a little bit, but I just won't put it in the next layers. I'm going to turn this down a little bit to give it like a slow cook. It's a little high after cooking the chicken. So you cook it until, and you see I cut my vegetables kind of coarse, the onions, because I kind of like that in a coq au vin, to taste the vegetables. Not just taste them, but, be able to feel the texture, taste the texture of them, and not just the taste. After that's getting a little bit, you see how it's turning? It starts to look a little translucent, the onion. That's when I put the next layer in. Just put it right on top of there. And this is a dish, people do it different ways. I've found a recipe where they do put it all, after doing all this, they put it in a crock pot and cook it for hours. You could do that. I saw people use a, what is that pot called where you can just put it in the oven? Excuse me. Ooh, this must be the seasonings or the pepper that's making me sneeze. Not that there's not enough things in southern Louisiana, southeast Louisiana to make me sneeze. And you might need a little bit of olive oil. I might put just a touch of olive oil, just a little bit of salt, like I said, a little bit of oregano. I'm not going to add more thyme because we already put a pinch of that, and I only have five tender hen thighs. So anyway, this is the vegetables. I don't think it needs any oil in there. It might, the bottom, to get all the rest of that up. So I'm going to actually add a little olive oil. Just a little. Just a little. And see how they're cooking down really nicely, the vegetables. Okay, so what I did after the vegetables were cooked, I just put them in the casserole dish like this. I'm gonna cook mine in the oven. That's what I was trying to tell you. Some people will cook it in a pot they could keep on the stove or whatever. And my sister was talking recently about how great shallots and garlic smell when they're cooking together. So I'm gonna put it on kind of a low because shallots are tender and so is garlic. So I thought I would cook the shallots and garlic separate just to see how it smells. And the pot's still hot, so I don't have to really wait for that to get hot. But usually you would have to wait for that. I think I did a video once and I didn't wait because I was on the video and I was rushing and I was like, oh no, it didn't even sizzle when it hit the pan, and y'all were probably thinking the same thing. So this is just shallots. Shallots is kind of, it looks like a bulb that looks like it looks like a garlic, but when you cut it, it looks more like onion. And it's it's not as strong as an onion. But I like all kinds of different flavors when I'm making a dish, especially like this. You get that nice and, because you don't want to overcook garlic, right? And you need something else in the pan, usually, unless you're going to cook garlic on really low and watch it, to make sure it doesn't burn. So I'm going to add the garlic. I just chopped up maybe about 4 or 5 toes, we call it, of garlic. I don't know if y'all call it that. My mom always called it a toe of garlic and or a head of garlic. Let's keep it with the body parts, right? And you just cook all this. You cook it all down. Okay, next I'm going to do after the shallots and garlic got cooked, I just put all that and I mixed it all into there. But that way, if you do it separate, maybe they might keep some kind of a, hold on there. So I put a little bit of olive oil in the pan. I'm going to cook the mushrooms separate. Let's see, I don't think we need all these mushrooms, maybe half. What do you think, half? Okay. So what I like to do is cook the mushrooms separate, because if you notice, if you cook mushrooms with other vegetables that have a high water content, it'll make them soggy. If you cook the mushrooms by themselves, and I also made the mistake the other day when I cooked a larger portion of this dish, I added salt to the mushrooms too soon. If you add salt to the mushrooms too soon, the water will come out of them and they will become soggy. This is the best way to get them to, they kind of like form a crisp almost on the outside. It's not really a crisp, but you can tell the mushroom won't break down like it normally does and just mix in with everything else. And you can taste the mushroom separately. You can taste the texture of it separately. So I like to cook my mushrooms like this. And the only thing I do add to it is butter on the top. And I learned this from my sister's ex-boyfriend who was a chef. And he taught me this. Just put butter on top of the mushrooms like this while they're cooking. Right? And it'll help seal in the flavor of the mushroom. Smells so good. I wish y'all could smell this. And you see how they're just sizzling? You just leave them there. If you touch them too much, it's going to make the water come out, makes the water come out of them. So you just let them sit there for a little while and they will crisp. Okay, so I started mixing them up. You see how the water really is coming out of them? They're getting smaller. Ooh, that means they're losing their water. And then now this is a good time to salt them after they lost all their water. I think that's a good start to that. Okay, so you add that to the mix. Sometimes I put it on top of the chicken. It's fine, no matter how you want to do it. Okay, just put it right like that. Right? Yum, that looks so good. And then you build it. So you take the chicken that you already cooked and you put it right on top of that. I think this might be that might be the right side. It's hard to tell after it's been marinated and floured and everything. Okay. So you get that all ready. And then what I'm going to do next is make a sauce that goes in there. So I like to kind of thicken my sauce. So what I'm going to start with, a roux, a blonde roux, right? With butter. A lot of times when people make a dark roux for gumbo and stuff like that, they don't use butter because butter burns it burns at a high temperature. You don't want to cook with something that burns. So that's why they use vegetable oil that can take a higher temperature. But we don't want that much because we have flour on the chicken, right? So just put a little bit, not like a whole cup you would use to make a big gumbo, right? And then you just mix the flour in with the butter. Okay, and that's called a blonde roux. It's actually going to thicken the sauce. And then what you want to do is add a little bit of chicken stock. I get this bone broth. It has bone broth in it. It's chicken bone broth. And you actually want to stir as you're turning it in because you don't want anything to curdle, right? Because the flour could actually, like, I've seen it before where in a roux where the flour will like make dumplings or something, like it's trying to bake a cookie or something. And you just do it slowly so that you see how it's starting to separate the flour? You just want to keep it well stirred. Just like that. You want to keep it well stirred. You don't want any of that flour to separate and become a dumpling on you. You just keep it stirred. And this is all going to reduce. So I'm going to use like maybe a cup of chicken stock. I think that's probably about a cup. You can eye it. You can eye it and see. And then I'm going to use some of this Pinot Noir I opened last night. Now, normally when you make it and you marinate the chicken like I did, I told you I made a larger portion of this the other day. You can take that marinade that you've been soaking the chicken in and reduce it and make it part of the stock. But since I don't have that marinade anymore, I'm just going to add the wine. About 2 cups, 2 to 1. Chicken stock to wine. That looks pretty good. And then what you want to add, which would add a lot of complexity to this dish, brandy. So just add a little brandy. You could add like a tablespoon to 2 tablespoons, but I think it actually adds flavor to the dish. And then you just cook it till it looks like it's reduced a little bit. And then we're going to get this in the oven, okay? Okay, well, the oven's ready too. So this is where I cook the sauce to. It looks like it's thickening a little bit. I didn't use that much flour, so it's not going to be like a real thick sauce. You just want it to cook long enough so that the flavors kind of penetrate well together, and it actually picks up whatever is left on that bottom of the pan you've been cooking, which I think the mushrooms did a great job of picking up the rest of it. Okay, I'm gonna turn this off so I'm not fighting with the stove, and then I hope you can see me pour it over the chicken like this. So I'm just gonna pour it into the casserole dish. Hope it's not all going down the... I pour it over the chicken instead of being like just on the bottom. Ooh, look at all that. I want to get whatever else is left on there. Okay. Okay, and then the last thing I do is I take the bacon and I crumble the bacon on top. I used about 4 sticks of thick bacon, but really I didn't need to make that. I didn't really need to do that much because I think I did like about 10 chicken thighs the other day and used about 8. See, this is just a lot of bacon. It wasn't this much bacon the other night, but that's not bad. It's not a bad thing. I don't think that's a bad thing. But we're just going to stick this in the oven. I have it on 375 right now. Ooh, looks like some wine sauce got over here on the side. So I'm going to make sure that's not, you don't want sauce on the side of your dish. So I'm just going to put it in the middle here. Because you know, an oven bakes from the bottom. So you don't want to have it too high up. And then I'm going to probably cook that for about 30 minutes and see how, because it's really just cooking the chicken, right? Everything else is cooked. And then I'll check the chicken and see if it's done all the way. Okay, we'll be back. Okay, so I had it in the oven for about 30 minutes, and then I just took a spoon and kind of add some sauce on top of it and put it in for another few minutes. So what I'm going to do is test it, or maybe I should try the biggest breast, thigh. I'm all thinking about breasts. Let's try this one, even though I'm knocking all of the, you want to test it to see if it's actually cooked all the way. See? Oh, that looks like it's cooked all the way. You see how it's... Does that look a little too... No, that's not red. So what I'm going to do is let it sit for a little while longer. I'm going to get my dish ready. This one will have to just get some bacon from the... We'll wait and eat that one last. What I'm going to do is let these sit for maybe about 5 minutes. And then I'm going to get the dish ready and show y'all how I serve it. So this is the end of the coq au vin cooking with cleavage episode. As you can see, I'm serving it on a bed of rice. This is Louisiana popcorn rice. I put the chicken on here. Looks so good with all the little seasoning vegetables on top. I wish you could smell this. It smells so delicious. I can tell that all the flavors really penetrated the dish and the chicken. And if it's done right, the chicken skin will be a little crisp and it'll be a perfect bite with a little bit of chicken skin. I'm a fan of chicken skin. I don't know about you. You might be like, ew, gross, chicken skin. But I really love it. It's going to be really hot. Really good. And then you can have it with a nice glass of Pinot Noir is what I have here. Delish. So I hope y'all enjoyed this episode of Cooking with Cleavage. And sorry that we had so many stops in it, but there were problems. We're going to eventually get an editing program so that we can actually edit these videos. And so it'll be 3 parts. But I hope you enjoyed the dish today, and I hope you learned something. I know that I did. I'll see y'all next time on Cooking with Cleavage. Have a great day.